We got some brand new Ghost of Tsushima gameplay, including a first ever look at a vendor, some art, and way more. So I want to go over everything in this video. A like would be super appreciated. And let's go. A quick reminder that I'm doing a giveaway for the Ghost of Tsushima Digital Deluxe Edition that comes with some nice goodies. You can enter via the link in the pinned comment and you have to be a subscriber of the channel to participate. And I will reach out to the winner in the week of release, so you also still got time to pre-order. First up, and maybe you already saw the news, but the game has gone gold, so there will be no more delays. Just a few more weeks until July 17th, and to make that wait a little easier, we got a first ever look at a town. And sure, we had some teases before and learned that you can buy some outfits here and improve your armor and weapons. And that is what we are seeing right now as well. So instead of having one vendor for everything, there seem to be NPCs who are specialized in one particular thing. So this likely also means that in some of the villages, not every vendor will be there. Here we see a bowyer, so it makes sense that we go here to upgrade our bow.
Does your bow need work, my lord? Death from afar.
Farewell.
And this is way more like typical RPG stuff than I imagined. Does your bow need work, my lord? And then the one-liner, death from afar after upgrading. Good to note is that this footage was recorded on the PS4 Pro, but it was uploaded to Twitter, so that's why the quality is so bad. But yeah, we can still see a ton of things here, like the different currency that Jin has. The flowers are used to change the color of your outfit, as noted during the recent State of Play. And next to it, we see supplies that you can pick up in the world, and especially in like many of the special abandoned buildings that Jin also visits during the gameplay. And he only picks up 13 here, but we need 150 of these supplies for a new upgrade. And also bamboo, that seems to be really everywhere. And you can luckily pick it up from your horse. Like, I remember in Horizon Zero Dawn, this was not the case in the original game, and they actually added a skill for that in the DLC, so you did not have to get off your mount all the time. And we also see Jin pick up yew-wood, and that seems to be more rare, so maybe it's used for a later upgrade, because there seem to be 5 for this half bow. And in this footage, we go from rank 1 to rank 2, and that changes the name of the bow as well. And when we upgrade it, every stat seems to be increased, although it's kind of hard to notice it, also because of the poor quality. But it seems like the bars are indicating the maximum amount of power that the bow can have if you fully upgrade it. But by upgrading it one level, the bar actually fills a little bit more, so you get closer to the maximum upgrade. Although again, I can be wrong because it's kind of hard to see, but that's at least what I make out of it. But I'm all ear, like let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. The upgrading also seems to be pretty straightforward, like we cannot focus on a special attribute of the bow, just upgrade it one way and then have everything increase. And maybe the stats on this bow, like on rank 5, are not that good because this is just the first bow that we can get. We only know about another bow that was used during the State of Play, the longbow that blasts enemies away, and we already saw like in that moment when Jin was picking up this longbow, an empty slot, so maybe for another bow that we can find. We already know that there are some ranged skills that you can unlock, so if you like using the bow, and as I said before, I think it looks really good, then you can focus on that, although we will of course be mostly fighting with our katana. And we got some new footage of the melee combat, but before we go over that, I first want to take a look at some of the new art they recently released. It once again shows how diverse the world of this game can be, with Jin arriving in a village with like a huge tree there in the distance, and just an awesome shot of Jin looking over the field on his horse. And as I told you before in a previous video, we should be able to choose our horse at the start of the game, so they will likely like function the same, but they might look a little bit different. And then bam, we are in a snowy area. Talk about diverse. And I love that the buildings are covered in snow here too, and we see a deep forest. And here we see a gate and a camp, likely taken over by the Mongols that are of course all over Tsushima Island. And we got some new gameplay that looks to be close to this in a burnt forest. And apart from the gameplay, we also learned some new combat details. We see Jin surrounded by a ton of enemies, and these Mongols will be very aggressive and they will try to attack you most of the times. We wanted players to be a little bit nervous about jumping into a fight. Ideally, players leave fights a little bit accelerated because that's how Jin feels. And that's also what we saw in the many trailers as well, like Jin removing his mask and is kind of tired, but he has to go on. And going back to the gameplay, because we can actually block and counter the incoming moves. We need to hold L1 for a block, but more effective is really waiting for the incoming attack to hit you. And if you then press L1 at the right time, you do a parry and then you open the enemy up for a counter attack. This also gives you a bit of resolve, and that is the yellow orb that we see above our health bar. But you can also upgrade this counter, likely with a skill point, to make it a perfect parry, stunning the attacker and leaving him open to special devastating counter attack, and earning Jin a dose of resolve. So more than normal, and with resolve you can heal yourself. And we now see that in action for the first time, and it heals like 1/3 of your health bar, so that is pretty big. But you can also use it to do powerful moves, as we saw one time during the state of play, but that's really the only sort of special ability we ever saw in action. Sucker Punch also talks in this blog post that I will link to in the video description. You can read it if you want to learn even more about the game. They talk about how they want to make the blade feel sharp, mostly referring to the fact that enemies have to drop fast, but that Jin can also die fast, because the weapons from the enemy are also very lethal. So during development, they toyed around with making enemies a little more bullet spongy. You can't really call it that, but you know what I mean, right? But that did not really work, so they always want to make sure that enemies can die from a few strikes. But there will still be tougher enemies, of course, like the general that we see right here cannot be assassinated, so you still can do a ton of damage, but then have to take him out in another way. I overall really like to make the comparison with Jedi Fallen Order, where the lightsaber always felt powerful as well, like even on the higher difficulties, regular enemies could still die from one hit, and I think that Ghost of Tsushima will be kind of the same feeling. We mostly see Jin do some rapid slashes, but he will also have slower, more powerful attacks that you can actually instantly cancel at any point, leaving Jin free to respond to unexpected events, like the shout of a Mongol charging in to attack. And really knowing when to like finish your move and when to quickly go back to a parry is really important for high level play, Sucker Punch notes. And it will also be really important to master the different stances that Jin has. We already saw Jin use some of them in the state of play, but now we also have some new footage that focuses on this particular aspect. So the stone stance should be handy for fighting Mongol swordsmen, but then after taking them out you want to switch to the water stance if you have only shield wearing enemies left. 2 strikes to break the defense and then you can take them out. And we also see in a brief moment here that we can pick up a kunai from an enemy even if we haven't used it against them. So that is pretty cool to know. These knives looked pretty powerful in the ghost footage, and now we know that you can actually get them from taking out enemies. We know that Jin's family katana is called the Sakai Storm. Again, that was also noted in that blog article. Link is in the description. I think we see him grab it here in the story trailer. And I'm sure that we will get more trailers and other footage as we get closer to the July 17th date. We also recently learned that Ghost of Tsushima will be playable on PlayStation 5 at launch via backwards compatibility. And on Reddit we have Ariko, who made a PlayStation 5 mock-up. And now I hope that this is real, like this looks awesome. Overall I prefer a black PlayStation 5 over the white one. But now, especially with the red touches and the whole like Ghost of Tsushima aesthetic, I'm in love. But I will not be waiting for the PlayStation 5 version, no. I will be playing on the PS4. And when we have more info, I will of course let you know here on the channel. So totally subscribe for everything Ghost of Tsushima if you haven't already. The link to the giveaway is in the pinned comment. Totally participate. Like the video to support the channel, and you can check out my most recent Ghost of Tsushima video by clicking on the screen on some awesome info about how you can get the best items in the game and way more. For now though, I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.